In today's episode, I'll be giving my picks and predictions for UFC 306 Mexican Independence Day at the Sphere. So, should be an exciting experience at the Sphere. So, let's go. UFC 306, 306, 306 at the Sphere. Let's go. Do something, man. People are questioning you. Shut up. Shut up. Okay, yep, do that. Sure, guys. Stupid and dumb. Just an idiot. Get your shit together, son. Fuck it. I loved it. Welcome to the dub cast. Before we get into UFC 306, let's recap UFC 305. I keep it real. I keep it honest. I will tell you my picks and how we did. UFC 305 was not a good event for us. We went 1-3 on our official picks. That brings us to 10-10 overall. Not bad for a semi-pro gambler. Hoping we got to win our picks this week or we're under. And once again, if you watch my NFL thing, my credibility here is in question. We had a good record with UFC, but now 10-10, everyone can go 10-10. Everyone can pick 50%. So hoping that this one turns out better. So quickly, let's recap what went wrong with UFC 305. The prelims, my boy Coolibao lost a sketchy decision, split decision. I think he should have won that, but nonetheless, it didn't matter. Luana Santos lost anyway. She got pieced up, so that parlay was shit. That was pick number one. Pick number two, the Gamrot and Urcheg parlay. Gamrot, I think, should have won that fight against Hooker, but obviously it was in Australia, so Hooker got the benefit of the doubt. I do see that Hooker could have potentially won that fight, so I'm not going to hold a grudge against that one. And Urchak just got rocked in round one anyways. That was the most shocking fight of the card for me, so that was another loss there. And Urchak going down in the first round also fucked over our distance parlay. Lee and Prates did go over 1.5, which was a crazy 1.5 because it was me and my friends always argue about if the 1.5 means half is 2 minutes and 30 seconds of the round, or that's just like 2 rounds. It has to get to 2 rounds. Fliff, 1.5 is the 2:30 mark because he got knocked out like right after that. So we did win that part of it, but we lost Urcheg and Kai Kara to go to the distance because Kai Kara just fucked him in the first round. I was completely wrong about Kai Kara, hand up. Urcheg got fraud checked. He's not that good anymore. In my book, he went down my list of favorite fighters. What a pitiful performance. Hope he worked overtime at Best Buy and got that money back. But our last pick, Dricus, saved the day with a massive win over Izzy. Wish I could have watched that live. The thing I was watching on my UFC Premium $300 subscription went out at the last second, so I missed it. So missed the missed the submission by Dricus, but I'm so happy Dricus got the dub. Dricus is quickly becoming one of my favorite fighters. Izzy's a fraud, and hope he retires. I thought he was going to retire and just shock the world, but he didn't. I wonder what's next for him. He's getting older. I don't know. I hope he does keep fighting, though. He's a good draw to the sport. Wrapping up the main card, Rosenstreich won a shitty fight against Tuivasa. It was supposed to be a knockout in the first round. They just sat there and traded blows, and of course Rosenstreich's a way better striker than Tuivasa, who's just mid at everything. So overall, the card was pretty solid, I think. Urcheg going down was a pretty big shock. Hooker winning was a pretty big shock. The Rosenstreich fight was shit, but the Dricus and Izzy fight was classic, so pretty good one there. Fun card. Prelims were okay. A lot of decisions, I think. I don't know. This was a month ago at this point. So enough about UFC 305. Let's move on to UFC 306. So as I previously mentioned, UFC 306 is in the Sphere. So this should be this has been the most hyped up event of the year besides UFC 300. Since UFC 300, they've been hyping up this Sphere event. It's Mexican Independence Day, so we have a lot of Mexican fighters on this card, which I think always plays a factor. You got to keep that in the back of your mind. I will denote who is Mexican and who is not Mexican on this card. Overall, I think they could have done a lot better on this. Listening to Good Guy Bad Guy, listening to Dana White, I thought that they'd have a better pull for this. I get that they had to include the Mexican fighters, but Moreno's not even fighting. Some of your bigger Mexican fighters aren't even on this card. Should be a really cool experience. They're gonna have like stories playing in the intermissions of the fights, I guess. So I'm excited to watch the fights in the Sphere. I think overall they could have got a better card with just bigger names, more hyped up fights. But it's UFC. I'll be seated regardless. I'll probably watch as many of these as I can. And so let's dive into said fights. On this card, we only have the prelims, which has 5 fights, and we have the main card, which has 5 fights. So This will be a little bit shorter because the UFC numbered cards usually have 12 to 13 fights. We're down to 10 here. Makes sense, logistically with the Sphere. Should be a shorter experience watching as well, so won't have to turn on at 6. We won't be watching fights for 7 hours. We'll be watching for 5 hours. So let's jump right in. Our first fight of the prelims is a bantamweight bout between Raul Rosas Jr., who is minus 950 on the money line. He faces off against, sorry if I get your name wrong, Aori Kaling, who is plus 550 on the money line. So as usual, I'll go into a little bit about each fighter and then make my gambling picks / predictions at the end of explaining that. So a little bit about Raul Rosas Jr. He is Mexican, so he will be fighting for the Independence Day Pride, and I'm assuming there's going to be a lot of Mexican fans in the crowd. Maybe not as many as last year's Mexican Independence Day, but this should be a pretty Mexican-favored crowd in Las Vegas. Granted, it is a Sphere, so it could get a little wonky in there, but I think that a lot of Mexicans will probably buy tickets for this, try and support their fighters. So Raul Rosas Jr. is kicking us off here. He's got 2 inches of height advantage. He's only 19 years old. This is probably one of the people you would know on this card because he's one of the fastest rising UFC prospects. At 19 years old is crazy. To think he's 4 years younger than I am is nuts, and he's already moving up the UFC ranks super fast. I don't know. It's just crazy. I do like Raul Rosas Jr. though. He's a good fighter. Him versus Tercios got canceled 3 times, but they finally fought and he smoked him. So all respect in the world. Rosas is 3-1 in the UFC. He's 1-0 in the Dana White Contender Series. Yeah, as I mentioned before, he's pretty hyped up. He's with the Peyton Talbots of the world. I saw a bet on DraftKings about who's going to be ranked higher at the end of 2025, Peyton Talbot or Raul Rosas. Thought that was a really interesting bet to put out there. They're just trying to get you guys to lose money on everything, huh? So in the UFC, he has 2 submissions, a knockout, and 2 decisions, in counting Dana White Contender Series as well. And within his last promotion, he had a lot of submissions, so he does go for submissions a lot. That's something I'm looking out for in this fight. 1 knockout, 2 decisions. So be that what it may, I'm looking at the sub here just due to the previous career subs and also the 2 subs. He's shown he's been able to translate that to the UFC as well. So his opponent, Aori Kaling, obviously a huge, massive underdog. He's 31. He has more UFC experience. He has 7 fights in the UFC. He's 3-1 in those fights. Half of his fights go to decision, and in 1 he had a knockout, and he has also been knocked out. So he doesn't have an iron chin, but he's also lost to submission 3 times in the past with his past promotion as well. So where does that lead me? Obviously, you can I'm leading you to the water here, leading the horse to the water. Obviously, I think Rosas is going to smoke him. This is, put the UFC on. Holy shit, the Sphere's on, and Raul Rosas is fucking destroying Aori Kaling. Nice. He's going to smoke him. This is a setup. He's going to move up the rankings quickly. This is like a Bo Nicol versus Cody Brundage. This is Peyton Talbot versus whoever he fought last. They give these guys layups to start. We saw Sean O'Malley fight nobodies. I think Rosas is going to smoke him. Obviously, the odds indicate that, almost minus 1,000. Yeah, wouldn't expect anything to change here. I think him winning by sub could be a play. Depending on the odds on that, could be bad. I tried to look on DraftKings and FanDuel, but it was closed. I think they only open those up on the weekend. But Rosas is shown to be a submission expert, and his opponent has also been shown to be susceptible to submission. So that's something I'm looking at in this fight. Maybe knockout too if you're feeling frisky. Probably the odds are not good on that either. They probably think he's going to knock him out or submit him. Distance, I don't know. It could go any of which ways. I just don't know how Aori Kaling could go down, and Rosas hasn't really had a lot of decisions. So I'm expecting this one to end in a submission at some point, maybe in the second round. That's my pick, is Rosas by submission for this one. Don't think I'm going to add it to the card, though. I don't like adding the methods to the card just because it's risky with all the other factors involved. Fight number 2 is a flyweight bout between Edgar Chairez, and he is plus 190 on the money line. He faces off against Joshua Van, who is minus 235 on the money line. So a little bit about Edgar Chairez. He is Mexican, so he will be fighting with the Mexican crowd most likely. He has 3 UFC fights, going 1-1-1. He lost to Tatsuro Taira, that's a really good loss. He's a good prospect. He's up and coming. We saw him win the fight night over the summer. He had a no contest against Daniel Lacerda, and then beat Daniel Lacerda on the rematch. And in a previous promotion, he lost to Jesus Aguilar. Just thought that was noteworthy, as Jesus Aguilar was the first fight on UFC 305, and we saw him win, so maybe that loss could mean something. 7 of his 11 wins have come via submission. He has 5 losses, 3 have been by decision, 2 are by submission. He's a very active fighter. He's fought a lot in the past couple of years since 2020. COVID, that's my standard of looking at how active you've been, because that's essentially almost 5 years ago at this point. And he's taking this fight on short notice. He was subbed in about 2 weeks ago, so not totally last minute, but there's a little bit of that factor involved too. Short notice. His opponent, Joshua Van, only has 2 career losses in his whole fighting career. He is 3-1 in the UFC. 2 of his wins have come via decision and 1 via knockout in the UFC. He has 5 knockouts in his previous promotion, and only 2 of his fights have gone to decision. Both of them were in the UFC. He was knocked out by Charles Johnson on July 13th, which is 63 days before this fight. That's a crazy turnaround. That's just made me so scared about this fight for him. That's just way too fast. You're supposed to take a lot of time to chill, hang out, get your morals back, get your self-centered, get yourself back. 63 days feels pretty fast. So overall in this fight, I would lean Van if I didn't have that in the back of my mind. But due to him coming back so quickly, I think Charez, he can get glitchy with submissions, so I wouldn't be surprised if he pulls the upset. Most likely staying away, but I think, throw a couple bucks on Charez. Why not? Especially via submission. If you can get that, I think that could be a play. So, yeah, that's my picks for that one. Charez, maybe by submission, maybe money line. We'll see. Yeah, just can't trust Van on that quick turnaround. Next fight on the card is a women's strawweight bout between Yasmin Draguaraguay versus Katlan Souza. Yasmin is minus 550 on the money line. Katlin is plus 375. Yasmin is the Mexican fighting for Mexican Independence Day. She only has 1 career loss, 11-1 overall. In the UFC, she is 3-1. Of her 3 UFC wins, 2 have come via decision and 1 has been by knockout. She has 7 knockouts to her name, totaling from her previous promotion as well. So she does have the tendency to knock people out, so that's something to keep an eye on. Katlan Souza, this is her 3rd fight in the UFC, going 1-1 her previous fights. She won in April, only a mere 5 months ago. No notable opponents so far. Her win in the UFC was by decision. That seems to be the trend lately with her wins, also from her previous promotion. And when she lost in the UFC, she got submitted, and she only has 1 submission in her career. So mostly by decision there for Ketlen. So my picks for this one, I'm probably staying away. I don't think Gorguay almost minus 600 is worth a play. And Ketlen hasn't really proved anything that she's going to win this fight either. So maybe it could go the distance, but Souza may be liable to being knocked out, and Yasmin has that knockout power. So stay away fight for me for this one. Moving up the card, we have a lightweight fight between Manuel Torres. He's minus 120, and he faces off against Ignacio Bahamondes. So Manuel Torres is Mexican. He's down 5 inches in height and 2.5 inches in reach in this fight. I think that's very notable for, my height and reach people out there. I know there's people out there that believe in it. I used to be one of those believers. I think it matters a little less, but when it's 5 inches in height, that's a lot. Something to consider. So he's 3-0 in the UFC, 1-0 in the Dana White Contender Series. He's on a 6-fight win streak. All of his wins in the UFC have come via knockout, and then 3 out of 4 of them have come via knockout. 1 of them was by submission. He has gone to 1 decision in his career, and he's only lost twice, both to submissions. His opponent, Ignacio Bahamondes, has more UFC experience with 6 fights in the UFC. He's 4-2 in those 6 fights. Half of those fights went to decision, and he lost 2 of those. So all of his wins have come via knockout with 1 submission, and he's never been knocked out. So my picks, I think this is going to be a really good fight. I think Manuel Torres could be a decent fight just because he's very good. Obviously, he's won 6 fights in a row. He hasn't lost in the UFC yet. He may be able to submit Bahamondes here, but I'm not loving it too much. I don't think so. I don't know. I'm guessing this one will end pretty early, so there might be an under in play. Depending on if it's 2.5, I'd probably take the under. If it's 1.5, maybe worth a look, but I don't know what Vegas thinks of the distance on this one. But yeah, not much else going on. This is just going to be a close, good fight, I think. So yeah, make sure you're watching this one. Next fight, a women's bantamweight between Irene Aldana and Norman Dumont. And Irene Aldana is Mexican, so she's on the older side at 36 years old. She lost to Amanda Nunes in June of 2023, actually, which is a very notable loss. She beat Macy Chiasson in 2022. She's lost to Holly Holm, Raquel Pennington, and she's beat Ketlin Vieira. She's been in the UFC since 2016, so just a really storied career. Does have a good win over Macy, but every time she goes against that next level of competition, it seems like she does lose. 3 of her last 4 wins have come via knockout, with a decision in December of 2023. So one of her more recent fights was a decision, and when she has lost as well, has also been by decision, and she has not been knocked out since 2015. So pretty iron chin there. Her opponent, Norma Dumont, even odds as well. Also has decent UFC experience. She's been in the UFC since 2020. She lost to Megan Anderson, that super tall girl that fought Amanda Nunes. I remember that was one of the first fights I watched when I first started getting into UFC again. She also lost to Macy Chiasson, who Irene beat, so there's a common opponent for you. She also beat Carol Rosa, who's another common opponent, but they both beat them, so that one doesn't really matter. She has no real notable wins on her resume. She's also 33, so this is between 2 older women fighting here. At least for UFC standards, 33 is not that old. She enters this contest on a 4-fight win streak, winning 7 of her last 8 fights. Her last 8 fights have all gone to decision, and she has 2 submissions in her career and has been knocked out once, and that was by Megan Anderson. So, not sure if that was a fluke, but seems like she doesn't go down easily at all. So the picks here, this fight being even, it's a little bit frisky, but I do like Irene outright in this one. I think it's basically an even fight, and she has the backing of the probable Mexican crowd. So, I think the crowd does play a factor into it. The judges, they can get swayed if it goes to decision. I just like Irene's resume better as well. I think she's a better fighter. She's fought better competition. She beat the common opponent they have. That's what we're going off at this point, but I don't know. I think she's been in the game a while. She knows how to get these wins. I think this fight is a lock to go the distance as well. Vegas thinks so too. It's like minus 500 I just saw earlier today. So I might throw that into a parlay or something to lighten the odds of something. So I like Irene, and the fight to go the distance here. So that wraps up the prelims of this Sphere card, and let's get into the main card. So the first fight on the main card is a flyweight bout between Ronaldo Rodriguez, and he faces off against Odi Osborne. I believe Ronaldo Rodriguez is minus 130-ish, and Odi Osborne is like plus 110. So Ronaldo Rodriguez, he is Mexican. This will only be his 3rd fight in a UFC promotion. He's beat Deniz Bondar by submission. That was in February, and he lost the decision in the Dana White Contender Series, so kind of an odd UFC resume. He's never been knocked out or submitted in his career. He has 7 knockouts under his belt and 5 submissions. Only 4 of his wins have come via decision. That's, this guy's swinging for the fences. He's got more knockouts, more subs than decisions. He comes into this fight on a 6-fight cross-promotional win streak, so even through his past promotions, he's on a 6-fight win streak. He's hot right now. His opponent, Ode Osborne, he's been in the UFC since 2019. He has no real notable opponents that pop out. He did lose to Manel Kape, who we saw at UFC 304. Not the greatest competition, but he did lose to him, so I don't know. Nothing really impressive on the resume opponent-wise. His record is the same, 12-7. He's on a 2-fight loss streak. He got submitted in March of this year, so he's coming back relatively early as well from that. He's only been knocked out 2 times, 4 submissions on his. He has 4 submissions, but he's also been submitted 4 times. He's 3-1 when it goes to decision. So, yeah, I don't know. Not loving Ode. So my predictions for this one, I like Ronald Rodriguez straight up. Staying on the Mexican train here, I think, home crowd, he could have something cooking there. I do think a lot of these fights were set up for Mexicans to win, particularly like Raul Rosas and the bigger odds, but this could be another sneaky one where Ronaldo can get a split decision or something like that, if it even goes down to that. I'm not sure how it happens, but I do like Rodriguez. I think he could knock him out. He could submit him. He could go to decision and win. So I do like Rodriguez outright, but I'm not sure on the method or the rounds or over-under on anything like that. So we'll take Rodriguez. Next fight, we have Daniel Zellhuber. He's minus 235 on the money line. He faces off against Esteban Ribovics, who is plus 190 on the money line. So Daniel Zellhuber, he only has 1 loss in his career, a decision loss to Trey Ogden in the UFC. I don't know who Trey Ogden is. He enters this fight on a 3-fight win streak. All fights but 1 in his UFC promotions have gone the distance. Of his 15 wins, 7 have come via knockout and 3 have come via decision. So mostly knockouts, and then some subs mixed in there with 5 decisions. Esteban Ribovics, he also has limited UFC experience, only 4 fights, 1 loss, 3-1, and he lost to Lok Radzahabov. So this is the point where we're at in the UFC sphere, where this is the 4th fight on the card between these guys who haven't fought anyone relevant. Just noting that there. Two of his 4 wins have come via knockout, with the other one coming via submission. So these fights end early for Esteban. In his previous promotion, he had a knockout streak of 4 in a row. He's never been knocked out or submitted. He has 5 submissions under his belt as well. So he's not going to go down early, but he could bring you down early. So I think this fight is closer than Vegas predicts it is. These are not 2 great fighters. They don't really have a resume to look off. I mean, I look strictly off UFC fights because UFC is different than any promotion. I think any promotion is different than any promotion. Like, it's going to be different. So I think there is value in Esteban Ribovics, but I'm not going to place a large wager on it. I could throw a couple bucks on it. I think this fight to go the distance could also be a decent play. So I like Esteban, but not by a ton. And I do like this fight to go the distance. Now on to the meat on the bone, the 3 juicy fights that we all showed up for. Our first one is a featherweight bout between Brian Ortega, who's plus 150, and Diego Lopes, who is minus 180 on the money line. This was supposed to famously be at UFC 303. Diego Lopes was told that he needs to move up a weight class in order to fight Brian Ortega. He does that, and then Ortega drops out. What do we get? Dan Ige on 6 hours notice goes into the ring, and Lopes has to drop the weight classes again. He was woken in the middle of the night, as Chael Sonnen says like a million times. So finally we're getting this matchup here. And if you listen to my UFC 303 podcast with Bert in the middle of the river that you could barely hear, I think my opinion might have slanted a little bit, but let's get into it. So Brian Ortega, he's 3 inches shorter here and 3.5 inches less of reach. I do think that is a notable deficit. It is Brian Ortega though, so not sure how much it's going to matter. He's going to have to get him in close and brawl with him or get him on the ground, which I'm sure he will try to do. If you don't know Brian Ortega, he has a long career but not a very active career. He kind of fights like once or twice a year, which I mean is standard. It's just not overly active. So he's beaten Money Moicano, he's beaten Cub Swanson, he beat Frankie Edgar at the end of his days. He split with Yair, and he's lost to Volk and Holloway. So 2 dogs are the people he lost to. Obviously Volk's champion, Holloway's fighting for a championship now. So Ortega has never been submitted, but he does have 8 submissions to his name. He has 3 knockouts, but he's been knocked out in 2 of his last 5 fights. Only 4 of his wins are decision wins, with 1 decision loss as well. So yeah, he's really only lost like a couple of fights, I think 4 fights. So that's who we're going up against, is Diego Lopes, man. I don't know, like, I feel like the odds were lower last time. I don't know why it escalated now, where Lopes is minus 180 and Ortega's plus 150, but here we are. So Diego Lopes, he's 4-2 in his UFC career. He beat Dan Ige obviously in June. He beat Sadiq Youssef, and he lost to Joe Anderson Brito and Ivalov, who is now out of the UFC after famously being kicked out after UFC 304. I don't know anything about Joe Anderson Brito, but Ivalov's like, okay, he's just kind of a boring fighter, so I'm not really putting much stock into that loss. Of his 4 wins in the UFC, Lopes, he has 2 knockouts, one of them by submission, and only 1 decision win. He took the fight on short notice to fight Ige and was in 3 weight classes in the span of 3 days, so that one's, that decision might be, you could see when he was fighting, he didn't really it wasn't Diego Lopes. He was kind of the shell of himself. He still did get the win, which is good for him because he was going through just as much as Dan Ige was. Everyone was hyping up Dan Ige. But Lopes was going through it as well, man. So I wouldn't put much stock into that decision. So Lopes has never been submitted, but he has been knocked out twice in his career, and he's a hot upcoming prospect in the UFC. I mentioned it before. He was one of the people who fought at UFC 300, and people loved him there. So his stock is going up fast. So this might be like a step into the real, just title contender range for him if he wins this fight. But my picks, I'm not so sure. In June, I loved Lopes in this fight. I don't know why. Something in me just said to pick Lopes. But now I'm kind of hesitant. I'm an Ortega guy. Ortega did beat Yair recently on Mexican. It was a Mexican card, I believe. I do think Ortega's being slept on a little bit with the odds. I think that, him at plus 150 is a decent price for him. It's T-City, man. It's Brian Ortega. He's had now 4 months, are 3 to 4 months to reset. Get back into it, figure out his mindset, get this fight right. They've had all this time to game plan for each other. I think this fight ends early, most likely by knockout, considering neither of them have been submitted, but maybe one of them could be the first one to submit each other. I'm not ruling that out either. But for now, I'm gonna stay away because it's too close in my mind, and I don't know why, because I was so convicted on Lopes earlier. But now I don't know who's gonna win. I think there could be honor if you're looking for an odds chase. Ortega could be your guy, bro. I really don't hate that idea. So yeah, that's my picks for that fight. I like the under in that. Second to last fight, we have a title bout, the trilogy between two women's flyweight fighters, Alexa Grasso, who's minus 140, and she faces off against Valentina Shevchenko, plus 120 on the money line. So yeah, brief history. First fight, I didn't watch it, but Grasso caught Valentina trying to do some dumb shit and knocked her out or submitted her, I forget. Second fight, they fought to a draw on last Mexican Independence Day. I scored it for Shevchenko. I thought she got robbed. I was also watching Colorado State that night, so I wasn't paying full attention, but I believe Valentina Shevchenko was robbed, and she didn't want to do this fight on Mexican Independence Day because she got robbed on last Mexican Independence Day, and I agree with her. It's like they're going to be slanted towards the Mexican people, especially this is the last fight of the night, including a Mexican. So if my girl Valentina gets robbed again, I don't know what to do, bro. She's a goat in this weight class. She ran this weight class, but I'll get into it in a second. So a little bit about Alexa Grasso. She's been in the UFC since 2016, notably fighting Shevchenko to a draw and beating her in the last two fights. As I mentioned, those are her last two fights are against Shevchenko. She also beat Macy Barber. She lost to Carla Esparza and Tatiana Suarez. She's never been knocked out, with 4 knockouts under her belt, and she has 2 submissions while also being submitted once herself. She hasn't been very active since becoming champion. I think the first fight was in 2022. This fight was in 2023. Now a year later, she's fighting Shevchenko again in 2024. So they've been in the ring for almost an hour together. I think that's crazy. This is a trilogy. The first fight ended like in late round 4. This second fight obviously went the distance to a majority draw. So this is crazy. They don't know. They know exactly what they're gonna do. It's gonna be a really good fight. I'm really excited for this fight. Honestly, I think this fight's being slept on heavy. I don't know. What say you? Shevchenko, though. She used to be the queen of this division, running this shit from fucking 9 to 5. I remember watching Shevchenko. She'd be like minus 1,000 and just be a lock. She's going to submit some bitch or knock her out. But Shevchenko's my girl, bro. Shevchenko might be my favorite woman fighter. I am a hype beast in the UFC, so excuse me for that. So before the 2 fights against Grasso, Shevchenko had a 9-fight win streak, just dominance. This is all or nothing for her, I believe, as she's 36, and if she loses this, then Grasso gets another opponent, and then, she has to fight her way back up or wait for somebody to beat Grasso. At 36, that's not an easy task to do. So I think this is really all or nothing for Shevchenko. I think that's why she was kind of forced to accept this, because it's like, you have to, it just sucks the way it happened. Dana, get her a fight in fucking wherever she's from. But they're not going to do that, so here we are in the Sphere. Should be lit, though. So she does have Shevchenko has a very impressive win. She beat Joanna, she beat Juliana Pena, she beat Holly Holm in 2016, not fucking Kayla Harrison submitting her in half a second in 2024, 8 years ago, Holly Holm. She also beat Talia Santos, Lauren Murphy, Jessica Andrade, Jennifer Meyer, kind of the gatekeepers of the middle of the women's division. So really some impressive names under Shevchenko. I can't say enough. I love Shevchenko, man. It's obvious. So her wins, 7 of her wins have come via submission, 8 knockouts, 8 decisions, so perfectly even, as all things should be. Her losses, she was submitted, she was knocked out, and she lost 2 decisions. So the picks here, if it's not blatantly obvious already, I love Shevchenko in this fight. This is my favorite bet of the night. Her as an underdog is crazy to me. She used to run this division. I'm hammering her money line. This is going to be my biggest bet. She's coming back for one more title run, go out on top like Amanda Nunes. She also lost to Amanda Nunes. I didn't mention that. As for the distance, I think this over could be in play. The over's 4.5. It's fucked, but it might go the distance, or it probably will go the distance, so I might be taking that as well. They were going ham in last year's fight. I remember that, but there wasn't really a moment where someone almost got knocked out. It was just really good fighting. They've had almost a year to train. This is going to be a really good fight. I can't say it enough. I think this is my most anticipated fight of the card, if I'm being honest, and that's crazy because, our next... Actually, it's really close between these last 2 fights. I mean, it's just a classic UFC card where everything just gets better. Usually sometimes there's like fights that you're looking forward to, but these last 3 fights, man, I'm really excited for these last 3 fights. I think that saved the Sphere. If it was like if there was a shitty third fight, Anyways, I love Shevchenko. I like the over. I like it to go the distance. Those are my picks for this fight. Finally, our last fight, a bantamweight bout between Sean O'Malley, Sugar Sean. He's minus 130 on the money line. He faces off against Merab Dajvili. I'm just going to call him Merab from now on because I don't know how to say his last name. He's plus 110 underdog. So obviously, Sugar Sean O'Malley, if you don't know anything about him, he's the face of the UFC. But here's a little bit about his backstory. So everyone knows the story already. Basically, he hasn't lost in the UFC since joining in 2017. Well, he did lose once to Cheeto, but we don't need to talk about that. He fucking tripped on his leg and couldn't fight. And I'm not even like an O'Malley guy. I picked against him. I picked Cheeto in 299 or 298, whenever it was, and that was a fucking pitiful fight. Anyways, O'Malley in his division, he has a massive height and reach advantage. He's like 5'11", while everyone else is like 5'6", so that'll be at play as well in this one. I do have to fraud check him though. The only legitimate wins I look at are his last 3 fights. Peter Yan, which I think is going to be very similar to this fight, and I didn't watch that fight, but I think people thought Yan won that fight, and it's O'Malley. He's going to get the benefit of the doubt. He's like the UFC's next McGregor, bro. It's I wanted to deny it, but it's just happening. He's going to become McGregor once McGregor's gone. I mean, it's him and Poton, bro. Like, think of anyone else in the UFC who brings that star power. John Jones doesn't even. I don't know. John Jones, we don't need to talk about that. Anyways, so Aljamain Sterling was an impressive win. That one I was shocked as well. I picked Sterling. Little knee to the I forget what it was. I think it was knee to the face. Sterling was just trying to shoot on him. Done. Cheeto, and he just beat the shit out of Cheeto for like 24 minutes and 30 seconds. Cheeto had that 1 30-second like Nate Diaz run where it looked like he hurt him at the last minute, but yeah, so if his leg doesn't fail him against Cheeto the first time, I think he's undefeated. Hot take, I know. Everyone else thinks that, but I don't know. I'm just in awe of how O'Malley's like undefeated and actually like almost basically undefeated, and how he's just running the UFC at this point. I really thought that it would be over by now. So 12 of his 18 wins have been by knockout. He does have 1 submission. That leaves 5 decision wins, so majority knockouts, 1 submission, but he can win a decision as well. So that's where we leave it with O'Malley. Let's talk about his opponent, Merab. Merab has a storied UFC career as well. He beat Peter Yan. There's a common opponent for you. They both beat him. He beat Henry Cejudo last. He beat Jose Aldo. So really good fights here. Really, both guys have beat up on 3 legitimate opponents, in my opinion. Merab hasn't lost since 2018 and 2017. So he hasn't lost in 6 years. O'Malley had that 1 loss, but he didn't really lose that, doctor stoppage or whatever. So this is going to be a really good fight as well. I'm really excited for this one. I think just stylistically they're so different because Merab will try to take you down, and I think he shot like 50 times against Peter Yan trying to bring him down, and it didn't work, or it didn't work sometimes, and he just kept doing it. So if he tries to do it against O'Malley's has a great takedown defense somehow. So it's really going to be a battle of like training and who's a better trainer. I'm really excited for this one. So yeah, as I mentioned, big grappler. He's, even if it doesn't work against O'Malley, he's going to keep trying to do it. I think he really needs to land that takedown like a minute into the first round, or this could spell trouble for Merab. Merab only has 3 knockouts and 1 submission of his 17 career wins, so most of his fights do end up going the distance. He does end up winning by decision a lot. He also hasn't fought in a UFC 5-round fight yet, championship rounds. Neither has O'Malley really, because, well, no, he did fight against Cheeto. So O'Malley does have a 1 5-round fight under his belt. So the picks here, every time I go against O'Malley, he wins. So, which he hasn't lost yet. So I'm switching it up. I'm going with O'Malley, bro. I'm taking O'Malley. I'm picking O'Malley. Sean O'Malley, let's ride. If Merab's able to get him on the ground, this could be a different story, but no one's really been able to do that. I don't believe that the antics of Merab, him drinking, apparently his staph infection, his huge cut in his face will be his downfall, but they aren't really great for his performance or prospects in this fight. I just think, Sean O'Malley's a goober, but he can fucking knock people out. I can't say enough about O'Malley, man. I'm just in awe that I gotta just take O'Malley. It's simple. I think O'Malley's just gonna stand at range and pick at him and win this fight. I do think he'll do enough damage to Merab to either knock him out or win by decision, one way or the other. I think O'Malley's gonna leave the champion still. it's shocking to me. It seems so weird. I remember watching him beat the shit out of that Mojino kid with the green hair and being like, he's just fighting bums, but now he's fighting legitimate people and winning. So I got to give credit to him. I'm taking O'Malley. I'm riding with O'Malley, and I can't wait till Merab submits him in like 2 minutes. But I really like O'Malley now. So O'Malley, I'm with you. Let's ride. So that'll wrap up the picks here. As usual, I'll break down my things that I'll bet on but aren't for my main card, and then we'll go to my main card. I'll give you 4 picks to try and get out of this 10-10 rut. Okay, so things that I'll bet on but probably are that things that I'll bet on but aren't for the official card. Rosas by sub. He's a submission expert. I don't have the odds on it because they don't open the odds until the last day or till Saturday. It could be really shitty odds. If it's like minus 300 or more, just don't even touch it. If it's less, if it's like minus 150 or less, take it straight up. If not, maybe parlay it with something else, another method you like, and put a half unit on or something. I don't know. I just think Rosas by sub could easily happen. My boy Chirez money line. I'm not confident enough to throw a big wager on it, but I think there's some value in his money line plus 186. He's kind of glitchy with submissions as well. He can kind of fuck you up, and his opponent isn't really that good. So Chirez, fuck it. Him by submission as well. Probably like plus 400. It's really good odds. Might throw a buck or two on that. Why not? Cash out. Esteban Ribovics money line plus 190. People always ask me for underdogs. Ribovics, Chirez, take these guys. Their opponents aren't that great. It's unproven versus unproven. Might as well take the one who has more odds. We can odds chase a little bit. Why not? Dumont and Aldana to go the distance. It's like in the minus 300, minus 400 range. I'm going to attach this to one of my next picks that I'll say as a parlay. Simple. It's stupid to throw all money on minus 300, minus 400. But I do think that one's going to go the distance. Two older women who are going to be at it for 15 minutes and then be so tired after. Ribovics versus El Huber to go the distance as well. Just didn't see enough knockout submissions by either of them. I think that one's an easy one to go the distance. Ortega and Lopes under 2.5 rounds. I think that one ends early. Knockout, maybe submission. If someone can pull off their first ever submission, I wouldn't be surprised. But I do like the under 2.5 in that one. That one's sitting at minus 102, so basically even, but maybe that'll go up a little bit. I don't know. Grasso and Shevchenko to go the distance, minus 186. I like this one a lot. We saw they basically went the distance the first time. They went the distance the second time. They fought each other for 60 minutes. They're going to go the distance again. So that one's a nice parlay piece. And then finally, O'Malley versus Merab to go the distance. I think it could be a situation where O'Malley's just picking at him at range. He could be destroying him like Mojino, but Mojino survived 3 rounds. Merab's a tough guy. He's never gotten knocked out. He's never gotten submitted, I don't think. He hasn't lost in 7 years, so he's not going to go down easier. This one's only minus 128. Not my biggest confidence, hence why it's not on the card, but I do think that there is value in this bet as well if you attach it to something else. So those are my picks that I won't put on the main card, but things I'll probably throw some cash on. Now, the moment you've been waiting for, the card. We got 4 money lines here for you. No parlays, no bullshit. Sphere, this is serious. We're 10-10. We need to get the record up. We need to go 3-1. We need 2-2. Continue the legacy. I need at least 2 of these people to win. So here we go. First up, Irene Aldana. Mentioned it before. Just better resume. Just think she's a better fighter. Minus 110 seems like might as well take it. It's even. Get your money back. She's a better fighter. I like it. Ronaldo Rodriguez. Same thing. You just better, I think. It's kind of a shitty one, but Vegas has minus 140, so I'm with Vegas. I'm with the Sharps. I think he's a better fighter, and I like him at minus 140. And minus 140 is a little steep for just a straight bet, but I'm taking it because we need picks. We need wins, and he probably will lose. My favorite bet of the night, Valentina Shevchenko, money line, plus 120. The fact that she's an underdog is crazy to me. Hammer, 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 hammer. This is like gavel level. This is galaxy gas level. I don't know what I'm saying. Shevchenko, bro, please pull off this for your legacy. I'm with you. I'm in your corner. Let's go, Valentina. So Valentina, big underdog, big hammer, big play. I'm loving it. O'Malley, money line. My demons have been cast away. No more picking against O'Malley until he loses. I'm on O'Malley's side. Minus 130 is a good price for him. Maybe try and get it on the best book. It could go down a little bit, like minus 125, minus 120. O'Malley, I'm with you. Just stand at range. Don't get taken down. Throw your strikes. You win by decision. You win by knockout. I doubt you'll submit him, but I'm with O'Malley. He talks his shit and it seems whack, but he's never fucking. I mean, he's lost once. He's never really lost in the UFC, bro. But those are my picks: Irene, Ronaldo, Valentina, Sean. Let's go. Sphere UFC is gonna be lit. If you missed my video yesterday, we did NFL week 2, NCAA week 3. Gave picks for those as well. So huge gambling weekend, huge sports weekend, and NFL, NCAA, UFC. I'm so excited. The Sphere should be a life-changing event, man. I can't wait to watch it. So, as always, leave a comment, leave a like, leave a dislike. Who are your picks for this fight, and what do you agree with? What do you disagree with? I'll be in the Sphere, so I'll see you there. Be easy.